I'm Taylor Webb, and today I've chosen to give my individual presentation over population management of wild Mustangs using fertility control drugs. Why did I choose this topic? I'm an animal science major with an option in ranch operations, hoping to graduate this December. I've had an interest in the horse industry ever since I was a young girl, and I maintain that interest today. I hope to continue working within the horse industry. After graduation, I hope to be a ranch manager or a horse trainer. I have future plans to adopt a wild Mustang. I've been looking into the adoption process for the past few years, and I hope after graduation I have the chance to adopt one of these wonderful horses and provide them a home. A little bit of introduction. Wild horse population has been steadily growing out of control for many years. We have realized this is a problem that we need to find a solution for. There's been constant conflict between the ranchers and the BLM regarding this issue. So ranchers in these western states such as Nevada, Utah, states like that, have cattle out on these rangelands because of government permits that were issued to them. The BLM, regarding this decisions, the BLM makes a lot of these land use decisions, and whether the horses are going to stay out on the rangeland or the rancher's cattle will maintain their permits. Current means of population control are no longer effective at reducing the large number of horses on the western landscape. We have been using adoption as our only means of control, and that is no longer an option that will remove enough horses off the rangeland to make a difference. Horses are starving due to lack of forage on the rangeland, so cattle and horses are both using this rangeland. The grass is depleted, there is not enough forage for either species, so horses are starving to death. Difference of opinion between the ranchers in the West and wild horse activists. Wild horse activists maintain the belief that Mustangs were on this land first. They deserve to be there, and we should not use any kinds of fertility control or any other management for them. Ranchers disagree as they have permits from the government for their cattle to be here. That is how they make their living. So, of course, that leads to very heated arguments. This means we must work together to find a viable solution so that the horses can stay on the landscape, but the ranchers' cattle can also have enough grass to survive. The current means of population control, as I mentioned before, wild horse adoptions are the most common form of population control. This includes web and internet adoptions and in-person adoptions. There are several adoption centers across the U.S. Web adoptions, you view the horses online and then you go and pick them up at an adoption center. The number of horses being adopted is decreasing every year. People realize that it takes a lot of commitment to keep these horses. It usually takes 90 days or longer to train them to be able to ride. They do take an experienced trainer as they are wild animals. There are now government incentive programs being used, such as the TIP program or Trainer Incentive Program. Trainers can adopt wild Mustangs and train them within 90 days. If they find an adopter, they can get up to $1,000 from the government as an incentive to keep training them. Despite these programs, thousands of horses remain in permanent government holding facilities. As you can see in this photo below, these facilities are not adequate to maintain these animals for long periods of time, and some of them spend their whole lives in captivity in facilities such as this one. You can see it's dry, dusty, not in good conditions for these animals. They could spend 15 to 20 years in these conditions and costing the government and taxpayers millions of dollars in the process. So we must work together to form a more viable solution to this overpopulation crisis. This leads me to discuss fertility control methods. The most popular one used today is a dart gun containing the fertility drug PZP. Horses are shot with a dart out of a dart gun. Dart contains contraceptive drugs, the most popular one being PZP. PZP remains effective in a horse's system for up to 12 months. They do require a booster within those 12 months, so each horse requires 2 shots per year. Allows horses to stay on the range instead of in holding pens, so people can literally take dart guns and go out and find these horse herds and dart each individual horse, and this allows them to stay on the range. They don't have to be gathered with a helicopter and then put into government holding facilities. So this allows horses to stay on the range instead of in holding pens, costing taxpayers thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars every year. Stops government helicopter roundups, so when horses are rounded up by government helicopters, this stresses the horses to the point of almost where they collapse. They are separated, mares and foals are separated, stallions are separated from their herds. Many horses are injured every year during these helicopter roundups. So I believe PZP and other fertility control methods may be a more viable option. Some benefits of PZP. PZP reduces the number of horses in holding facilities, as I previously mentioned. Saves the BLM up to 40% in costs as compared to Roundup only. So as you can see in this chart, PZP fertility control is an alternative to helicopter roundups and removals. More than 20 years of research has shown PZP is safe, humane, and effective. Gather and removal only management versus PZP and some removal. PZP fertility control could save as much as 40% in cost if used instead of helicopter gather and holding only management. Reduces herd stress from helicopter roundups. As I mentioned before, many herds are split apart in the process of these roundups and horses are injured. Humane, cost efficient, and effective. It is much more cost efficient to use PZP or other fertility control drugs than to use government helicopters and roundups. This requires labor, fuel, time. Everyone's cost is more beneficial to use PZP than these other traditional government roundups. Some concerns with the use of PZP. Long-term use could cause sterilization. There are those that believe that mares darted every year could result in them being sterile after several years of use and not being able to conceive a foal ever again. The breeding cycles could be altered, so mares shot with PZP could conceive later in the year as they don't cycle as often as they should. This means that the mares give birth late in the year when there's less food available during pregnancy. Lessens the foal's chances of survival. There are those that believe the foals born in the fall and winter may not survive due to the lack of forage and the increased distance to water. So even though there's less food available during pregnancy, many people believe that mares darted with PZP are more able to care for their foals, even though they were born during a later time of the year. These mares that are darted have had often a year or two of rest and recuperation that they have not had to nurse a foal as they would have if they had not been darted at all. So there is two different viewpoints regarding the mares and PZP, cycling late in the year and giving birth late in the year. Although they do give birth in an undesirable time of the year, there is a benefit to still using PZP. Cost effectiveness of PZP. PZP costs on average about $24 per dose. As I mentioned before, they need 2 doses per year, so that's around $48 per animal. Darting with a gun cuts costs by 60% compared to roundups. So as you see in this picture, you do have to get relatively close to dart an animal with PZP. This is very dangerous as these animals are wild and you have to get out in the terrain with them. Wild horse advocacy groups are now donating money for PZP doses. They see PZP as a more viable option than helicopter and government roundups, as less horses are injured and there's far less stress in darting horses than rounding them up with a helicopter. You do need volunteers to administer darts to wild horses, and that does require a large amount of training and time. BLM employees are often employed to dart horses as it is very dangerous. They don't just let anyone go dart horses out in the wild. So although there are some hurdles with PZP to get around, I believe it's a more cost-effective option than government roundups and helicopter holding facilities. So in conclusion, PZP could become an answer to wild horse overpopulation. We do have some issues that we have to work through with PZP. There are those that believe that there are uncontrollable things that could happen after use, such as sterilization. It is cost effective compared to roundups and holding facilities. You do have to get people to go out and dart these horses, but it is a lot more cost effective option than holding these animals in facilities for 15 to 20 years. Conflict about sterilization after long-term use. In my opinion, there needs to be more research done on this subject because there is not any documented cases of horses becoming sterile after continued use of PZP or other non-fertile drugs. Requires a large number of volunteers. You do, as I said before, it does require a large number of people because there is so many horses out on the rangeland to dart. You also have to go and find each individual horse twice a year for their boosters, so that requires tagging the horse with some kind of location device because otherwise you would never be able to find these horses again. So you have to find each horse twice a year. That is a lot of rangeland for people to cover. That is a big drawback of PZP and other dart gun fertility drugs. We must find a way to hopefully get over that hurdle because PZP could be very beneficial to wild horses. Mares injected with PZP are healthier and fitter than non-treated mares. So as I mentioned before, mares may cycle and foal later in the year than mares that are not injected with PZP. Although they foal later in the year, I still believe they would be more apt to care for their foals if they are treated with PZP rather as opposed to they're not. Mares that aren't treated are giving birth to a foal every single year. They have no rest and no time to recuperate. So I think mares injected with PZP would be fine handling their foals in less desirable times of the year. Adoptions are still an important part of the solution. Even though PZP could become the most popular fertility control drug on the market today, adoptions are still needed and they're still a crucial part of the overpopulation problem. If you have the desire to adopt a wild horse, please do so. If you have the facilities and you have the knowledge to do it, it is a very good thing for these horses to find a family that really cares about them and trainers that care too. So if you have the desire, please do so. Here are my references. Thank you for watching, and please comment with any questions.